witches, it's Taya, and today I have with me Scrappers. This is my kitty Scrappers. We actually have 2 cats, and yeah, he's probably not going to stick around, but I just wanted to share him because everybody gets to meet Luna, but this is Scrappers the cat. He's my cat. We have another cat named Worm. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mental health and witchcraft. Now, my mental health not being great today, I haven't really been able to formulate exactly what I want to say about mental health and witchcraft, but I want to start the discussion. And I suppose as I go through this, if any questions come up for you, leave them in the comments. I think it's important to talk about mental health, and I think it's important to talk about witchcraft. And the two actually I find go together very well. So let's start with my diagnoses. About 10 years ago, I was having really bad anxiety. I went to my doctor, my general practitioner, and she prescribed like a daily anti-anxiety medication. So I started taking that, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea life could be so good. Until it wasn't. And my life started falling apart, and I couldn't get anything done. And so she sent me to a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with ADHD. So basically what happened is I've had ADHD my whole life, and I've had this anxiety that keeps the ADHD in check. And when we took away the anxiety, the ADHD just was like, woo, it's a free-for-all. And my life really sort of fell apart. So on top of ADHD and generalized anxiety, I also every once in a while have it crop up is anxious depression. So it's a fun mix in my head, let me tell you. So I have a great treatment plan. I'm not here looking for treatment options. I take daily medication for both anxiety and ADHD. I have for, like 10 years now. I will for probably the rest of my life. I'm neurodivergent. My brain doesn't work the way a typical brain works. It doesn't, it either doesn't make the chemicals or enough of the chemicals, or it doesn't let them stay in my synapses long enough. And that's just how my brain works. And I've done tons of therapy. Like, I'm talking shit tons of psychological therapy. Predominantly cognitive behavioral therapy over the years. And just to come to the terms with the fact that, you know what? My brain doesn't work like everybody else's. I can't just wander through life the way a lot of people can. I'm going to have to come up with different skills and different tactics to get things done in my life. The other thing that I've spent many years in therapy working on is mindfulness. And I think it's so wonderful because the mindfulness really plays in with my witchcraft, and it's brought this greater spiritual awareness into my life. So, like as an example, I used to walk the dog. And while I'm walking the dog, I'm making a grocery list. I'm thinking about the 17 things I have to get done. I'm like, oh, I need to get home because I've got to get this done. I've got to get that done. Da, 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 da. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, walk's done. Okay. And like, you can't even remember most of the walk, right? It was just like, woo, like I'm up in my head all the time. And with mindfulness, when I'm walking the dog, all I'm doing is walking the dog. I'm not making lists. I'm not thinking about what I have to do later. I'm just walking the dog. And literally, step by step, I am mindful of that walk. And while I'm walking, I'm looking at everything around me. I'm aware of what's going on. And for me, a big one is listening, and I'm listening. I'm listening to the birds. I'm listening to the kids playing over there. I can hear a car driving by. But I'm very much present in the moment in my body. And so just as an example from that dog walk, how does that tie into witchcraft? What I notice is I see animal spirit guides all the time. I go for a walk and there's a bird on a bush talking to me, or there's the other day we were in, like, you know, I live in the suburbs, so we were like off in like this kind of cul-de-sac in the middle of the burbs, and there's a coyote. Just crazy stuff happens sometimes. And before, I was so busy, so up in my head, I wouldn't have even noticed any of that. So that mindfulness really, really works well with my mental health, but it works well with my witchcraft as well. So I find all of this kind of mental health journey and witchcraft, it's all kind of entertaining, right? Because back in the day, like hundreds of years ago, mental illness, like if you were seeing visions, people were like, oh, she's a witch burner at the stake. If you were like, just, yeah, like a little weird, a little off, people were like, oh, it's witchcraft. Or people, if they were all of a sudden experiencing mental health, they were like, oh, I'm being attacked. It's like a witchcraft attack. And I just find it so entertaining that we've really come full circle now. And rather than it being this negative thing, witchcraft is actually supporting my mental health journey. And really, to come full circle, my mental health team is not only supportive of my witchcraft journey, they're excited for me about it. And I think part of it is they recognize that the witchcraft gives me a higher spiritual purpose to my life. Like if you ever go to say, kind of an easy example would be like if you go to AA, right? Those 12-step programs. One of those steps is recognizing that there is a higher power and giving yourself over to it. And while I don't give myself over to a spiritual power, I work very closely with my spirit, with spirit in my life, right? I work with deity. I work with spirits of this place. I work with the spirits of my ancestors. So while I don't necessarily give myself over and worship, I do give myself over to that idea that there is more to life than just the daily struggle. And yeah, my mental health team have been, they were excited for me when I was like, oh, I'm starting witch school because I'm ending a career right now. And they were very concerned that with my ending my career, what am I going to do? What are you going to do with your time? Where are you going to find your purpose? Where are you going to find your drive? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you about witch school. Let me tell you about my witchcraft journey. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is great. You've got something to do. And I'll explain to you in a little bit how that kind of ties in. Because I have good days and I have bad days. And sometimes like a bad day, I had a bad day on Monday. It was the full moon. I've got a whole full moon kind of ritual thing that I do. Nothing too complicated, but it's a series of things. And I wanted to do some spellcraft that night as well. So I typically start that stuff at about 9:30, right? My son's in bed, my husband's getting ready for bed, the house is quiet, and then I can go and sort of work on my witchcraft. And I was exhausted. I'd had a bad day, which makes me very tired. So by 9:30 at night, I was just done. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to accept that. That's how my life goes. And rather than trying to push through it and maybe not getting the results I wanted, I decided to wait and do the work on Tuesday morning. So sometimes, right, it kind of sucks. But more often what I find is that my witchcraft work is inspiring me to do more and to get more done in my daily life so that I can get to the good stuff, right? Oh, you know what? I'm a terrible housekeeper. Terrible. Bless my husband for putting up with me, right? He has to do the dishes because I just am so bad at it. But I'm like, okay, I got to get that load of laundry in. I got to get the vacuuming done before I go and do the spell work, right? I've got to, that's one of my strategies. I got to get the mundane manual chores done before I get to go and do the stuff that I'm excited about in my day. And so what witchcraft does is it It's the good stuff. It brings that driving purpose into my life. So anyways, I don't really know what else to say. Like, there's so much to say, but I'm having a hard time sort of putting it into words. So I guess all of this to say that if you have mental health issues, don't be afraid of witchcraft. It can be a supplement and a support to your treatment plan. It can be a great supplement and support to your treatment plan. And if you haven't sought treatment help, maybe you're feeling like, oh, I feel like I've got some mental health stuff and I'd really like to get it looked at, but you're feeling like, I don't want my witchcraft to be, I don't want people to think negatively of that. Know that there are good people out there. All of my therapists, I've had about 4 of them over the last 10 years, my psychiatrist, all of them have been willing to entertain my witchcraft as a positive thing in my life. Some of them have had more questions than others. The one question they tend to start with is just when I say, well, I practice witchcraft, they'll say, what does that mean to you? Explain to me what that is, how that works, right? They don't tend to assume. Okay, explain to me how that works. And I'll typically just say, well, have you heard of Wicca? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, it's like that, but not exactly like that. Because I'm not Wiccan. I'm a traditional folkloric witch. So it's a little different. But that idea, right? They're kind of like, all right, I'm familiar with that, right? They're like I find most mental health practitioners are aware of pagan faiths and are willing to be accepting of it, as long as you can explain sort of what it is and how it works in your life. So I guess just if you're feeling mental health issues and you're like, maybe I want to get that looked at, don't be afraid. Your witchcraft can go hand in hand with a great treatment plan. So I'm sure there's other questions. Please leave them in the comments. I'd love to have a discussion around mental health and witchcraft. If I can kind of think of more specific areas I'd like to delve into, I'll definitely do more videos in the future. If there's something specific you'd like to know about or hear about, leave it in the comments and we'll put it together for you, okay? All right, that's enough babbling on about it. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.